Welcome to Life Mastery Radio with Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey, the show that dives into the science of higher consciousness with inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. Join Todd, Jackie, and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. It's all right here with stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Now, here's your hosts, Todd and Jackie.
Welcome to Life Mastery Radio with Todd and Jackie. It is another groovy day, and most of you already know, but I'm going to tell you anyway. When I wake up in the morning, before my feet hit the ground, I decide it's going to be a groovy day, and that's the way the day, it has to happen that way. Now, things could change. Something could happen. But I always think back. I started out groovy, and whatever I need to do to situate myself and my reaction to make it a groovy day. And it turns out that way every day. It just works. It's magic. Try it. You'll like it. As always, I have my co-host with me today. She flew solo last week, did an awesome job, but she's hanging out today. And hi, Jackie. How are you?
Hello, I am sipping some tea today. My voice is a little bit spent.
You did a lot of gabbing last week.
I did a lot of gabbing last week.
She had a big event. Tell us a little bit about that, because you were working with Future Business Leaders of America, and these are youngsters. What an amazing program. I might have to check that program out.
Yeah, it was actually the very first live conference I have been to since the pandemic started.
Oh, that was the other really cool part.
Yeah. And so the Future Business Leaders of America is a program for mostly high school kids, but I have found that there's some middle schools that also offer that program to their students. And it teaches them entrepreneurial skills, communication skills, promotion, marketing. It teaches them some technical skills as well. And I attended their state conference. So there were 1,500 students from high schools and some middle schools coming from all over the state of Washington to Spokane, Washington last week. And they come ready to compete in some programs to make it next to the national level. And they also attended 2 workshops that I provided. I judged about 25, actually 2 contests, but there was about 35 kids total that I judged. And they're just remarkable. If you ever have any doubt about our future leaders, have no fear, because this is a group of kids that have it going. They have to wear business attire.
I was going to say they have their required dress code.
Yep, and definitely that changes their behavior, and they act much more professionally when they have to dress that way. And so it's a really good.
Which is kind of cool to show up in a zoot suit and be all hanging out like Well,
I was a little worried because I'm like, I don't know that I have anything business-like to wear anymore. I've broken my ankle twice and had surgery, and so I can't wear high heels anymore. It's not going to be possible at all.
Darn it.
So I know. So my business attire has changed. It's a little more casual business.
Might be a good thing. I can't imagine walking around in high heels all day long.
It wasn't too bad, but it did give you power. I don't know. Maybe our guests can talk about that a little bit, but it does give you power when you've got, high heels on and you've got a business suit on. And without that, you feel a little bit less powerful, I think.
Oh, very cool. And how are things at the Speak Feed Lead project? I mean, you were working with kids. What is the deal with working with kids, Jackie? Would you get something out of that?
Just a lot of joy. In fact, we have another summit. It is coming up on May 16th and is in conjunction with the United Nations International Day of Families. And the very next day after that event is going to be a summit called Family Matters. And we have been invited to get 20 youth as speakers on this summit, similar to what we did last time for the Voices of Women Summit, but this is both genders. And we're looking for speakers, ages 10 through 20, that will come on and talk about their experience with families. What does that mean to them? Do they have any solutions to offer for families? How to empower families, relationships, that kind of thing. So we're looking for some speakers in that regard. And we're also looking for sponsors for those speakers. If you would like to sponsor one of those speakers, please go to speakfeedlead.org. And under the Make a Difference tab, there is particularly a campaign that's called Sponsor a Speaker on the Mega Summit. And that will allow you to sponsor one of those particular
I guess I should correct myself and not call them kids, call them young adults.
They are young adults for sure.
With the direction. That's the cool part. Jackie's instruction and everything else, and some of those programs give them direction. That's important. The United States Marine Corps gave me direction.
That's right. Gave you some confidence too, I'm sure.
Oh, I want to remind our listeners today that our show page is at www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com. Any links that we talk about today, we have a link there to our guests and anything else that she might refer to. I think everything's on her website. So the link is there on today's show page. If you're, I'm not going to say if you're interested, when you become interested, you will follow that link and find out more, because it's going to be some really cool stuff that we talk about today. While you're there, you can check out our blogs. Jackie writes a blog about every show that we do, and you can sign up for a newsletter and get that link to that blog. Every week, we talk about who's coming on the show, who's been on the show, and of course, Jackie's blog post. My book is also there. The link to my book, 6 Keys to Life Mastery. You can follow the link, get my book, and love it. And please, after you love it, give me some feedback, because that's what it's all about. Jackie has a book there too, and you can follow that link. Mm-hmm. She has one handy, Self-Centered Leadership. And that's how it all started. She wrote that book, and then I had to write a book. Follow the leader. That's what we do. Let's see, what else I think that's about it, Jackie. I think today's guest is your invite. So take it away, Jackie.
Yes, I was delighted a few months ago to meet our guest at a networking event, and we hit it off. We had a follow-up conversation, so I'm delighted she can be here today. Her name is Homeyra Faghihi. She is a doctor of psychology and a licensed clinical social worker. And she has over 20 years of experience in providing individual, family, and group therapy services. Homeyra has assisted various populations over the years and helped hundreds of clients with issues such as self-image, shame, anxiety, depression, childhood traumas, adult traumas, military sexual trauma, domestic violence, and difficult family relationships. I think that probably covers just about everybody, right? Her passion
and a big smile. Don't forget about that big smile.
That's right. Her passion is to educate, coach, and empower her clients as they navigate their way through persistent self-doubt and limiting core beliefs. She facilitates empowerment workshops and provides individual coaching services as she helps clients with learning skills to help them take their power back. In fact, her program is called Empowerment for You. It's a 4-step blueprint of how to empower yourself. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And I think you're going to be able to connect with Homeyra and what she offers to help you with the trauma that you have experienced in life. So please welcome Homeyra Faghihi.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Jackie and Todd, for having me here. It's such a pleasure to be here. And I'd like to start by saying I said goodbye to high heels a long, long time ago, and I'm very okay with that.
So did I.
Yeah, it's all about comfort, isn't it? I mean, yes. I think you feel much more empowered when you feel comfortable.
Yes. I mean, they look nice, but at the same time, it to me, they're not worth it anymore because they hurt.
You know, I missed the memo that you had a doctorate in social working. My daughter has a master's in social working from the University of Washington. And if I guess the question that came to my mind was if, and she's considering moving forward with a doctorate. If you were to go back, would you have done that much more work to work with people? Because she loves to work with people, especially the less fortunate.
That's wonderful. Yes, I have my master's in social work. And so then, I became licensed a few years after that. But I did get my doctorate in psychology, not social work. I got it in psychology only because I wanted to learn more about therapy stuff, but I didn't really need it. I was already a licensed practitioner and I didn't need to have that. That was just I wanted to give myself a birthday gift. It's like, here's your birthday gift.
A little more work. Here, let me challenge myself a little bit more.
That's a long time birthday.
Well, that's cool though. I mean,
yes,
because that's what it's all about, is we do things to challenge ourselves, and that's how we learn and grow, right?
Exactly. But it absolutely is not necessary. If the focus is to help people, you can do it with a master's. And I had done it all. She
did a bunch of hours, and then I guess she's close to being able to have her own practice now. And she's amazing. And my oldest daughter, Lauren. Hi, Lauren. I'm talking about you on my radio show. Sometimes she listens and my other daughters listen too, but that's really cool. Great advice.
Yes, please send her my love, and wonderful. We're colleagues. I love that.
Well, so tell us a little bit about your journey then. What brought you to this point, and how did you find this desire to help people, especially in that particular demographic of trauma surviving?
Yes. So, when I was 17 or 18, I would say 17 or 18, I was still living in my birth country of Iran. And I saw a therapist for the very first time. And I knew right away it felt so good to be heard and understood that I thought, wow, this is so cool. Maybe one day I can do that. So that's where it all started, from my teen years. But I'm really moving forward quickly to 9 years ago. I started to work in a women's clinic, and my official title there was women's health social worker. So in that role, I had several jobs that I did. One was to provide case management services for the ladies who came to our clinic. It was a primary care setting. And the other was to provide mental health services. And with mental health services, I provided initial assessment, which is that 1-hour interview where we would interview the client and see what kind of services they needed, how to link them to what, and also to provide individual therapy. And then the other role that I took it upon myself, and thank God for my very supportive supervisor. When I did all these initial assessments, I noticed that there were groups that we had several groups that we were offering, but there were those that we were not offering. So based on the needs that these ladies came in with, I started to put together groups and offer them, facilitate them. And it quickly became my favorite part of my job. And I just love facilitating groups. It's just so rewarding to see the ladies connect and support each other, inspire each other. It's just really, really cool experience. So when last year, for different reasons, I decided to resign from my job, which was a very difficult decision. But I had to say goodbye to my job. I then decided to bring my favorite part in that role, to bring it into my own services. It's called Power to the Self. So at Power to the Self, I provide group coaching, some individual, but mostly group coaching. And how I ended up working with women who have experienced intimate partner violence is when I was at that job, as I was doing these initial assessments, a lot of the ladies who came in, they mentioned history of domestic violence / intimate partner violence. And we didn't have that group. And I was just shocked that we didn't have. Why is it that we don't have this group? And so I got the education, the certificate, and started to offer it. And it just became a very, very rewarding experience. I myself, before my current healthy marriage, I was involved in some situations that were not so healthy. And so I always connect with the ladies who struggle. And so, that's how I ended up helping women who have left a toxic and or abusive relationship. That's the focus of the work that I do now. And
at some point you were working with women veterans and veterans. How did
Yes, this women's clinic that I just mentioned, it was at the VA. So yes, sorry I wasn't clear about that. Yes, so for almost 9 years, I worked.
I just know that you have this warm, special place in your heart for veterans.
I do, very much so. Very much so. They're right here, especially women veterans, because I worked with them for 9 years. And of course, I when I was covering for other social workers, I did help men veterans as well. We had transgender veterans that I helped. And so, yes, all veterans are welcome in my heart.
Do you find that women veterans or in the military are experiencing violence more than we know? Would you say that?
I know personally for myself, I had heard of the term military sexual trauma, but as a social worker working in women's clinic, I had no idea how prevalent it was. So that's my own experience. So I'm going to assume that is true for a lot of people as well, that we have heard the term, but we're not really aware of how prevalent it is, how painful it is, how traumatizing it is. And yeah.
And it doesn't sound like there's help immediately for these people. Is that true?
Well, at the VA, I mean, at our clinic, we had a lot of help for them, but it takes a while for women to get to that point. There's, for many, not for everyone, but for many, there's not a lot of trust in the VA. And so for them to actually get to the VA might take a long time. And when they get to the VA, we have our, I say we, I'm still part of the VA, even though I'm not.
We get it.
So the VA, they have their flaws. So VA is not a perfect system, but there's also great services that we offer to the ladies there. So yes, it takes a while to get there. And once they get there, because of history of trauma, if there's something that doesn't go well with the VA, it's easy to say, okay, this is not for me, and just leave. And that happens often, unfortunately. But I would say the ladies who stuck with us, a lot of them were very happy.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, that's because you teach empowerment principles, right? It's not so much about what's in the past, but how can we move forward, right? Am I getting it right?
Well, we had therapy services there. So there's a little bit of difference between therapy and coaching, if I may just share a little bit about the differences. So for example, for myself, as a therapist, I would provide a mental health diagnosis for my client. As a coach, I do not do that.
Right.
As a therapist, I would dig deep into the past with the client. As a coach, I would stay mostly focused on the present time and the future. Of course, we discussed the past a little bit because I need to understand how you arrived at this point, but the focus is not so much on the past. It's mostly present and the future. Right. And for that reason, as a therapist, I would take longer with a client. It may be a year or two, sometimes 3, depending on how severe the issues are. As a coach, because we stay mostly to the present and future, then it's like my program right now is a 3-month program. So it's a set period of time. And as a therapist, I would see clients with more severe mental health issues, more serious issues, such as thoughts of harm towards self or others, or severe nightmares, flashbacks, a lot of relationship issues, like let's say no stable relationships around you, for example. I would help those individuals with those issues. As a coach, I help individuals who are a little further along in their journey or journey toward mental health, or actually a lot of my group clients, they have individual therapy on the side, because coaching is a little different, or a lot different sometimes, depending on the situation, from therapy. So coaching can be a good complement to therapy. I hope that made sense.
No, totally. So that's where you prefer to dwell, is in the coaching.
Currently, yes. Currently at the VA, though, the thing, and before, because I've been doing therapy for over 20 years. So yes, I did a lot of therapy. All that I did was therapy, but now pretty much all that I do is coaching.
Do you find, Homeyra, that some people should go through therapy before coaching, or is it something because you have the ability? Because like I could call myself a coach, but if someone came to me, and in fact, it has happened where someone has come to me that needs to heal from some trauma before I can really help them, I would send them to a therapist. But if you're already a therapist, are you able to then just work your therapy magic with those people and coach them at the same time, or do you feel like there's some steps they need to take first before coming to you?
I would say as you know, because I am a licensed therapist in the state of California still. And so I do bring my therapy skills to my coaching services, but they are different. So they are different types of services. So as you mentioned, Jackie, if I notice that the issues are beyond what my program can offer, I might either refer them to therapy first, or I might say, the only way that this would work is if while you're in my program that you would also see an individual therapist on the side.
Okay. Awesome. So for any woman or man out there right now listening to this, and they are recognizing there's some things that I need to work through and I can't do this on
Isn't
my
that
own.
all of us?
Yeah. What would be the first step that someone should take when they're, I call it that sort of that emergency crisis where you're feeling like I can't go on this way. I've got to do something different. So if someone is feeling that way, what would you suggest is the first step they could take?
Well, first of all, to praise oneself for being so in touch with that awareness, knowing that I need help. I can't do this alone anymore.
Yeah, that's big.
And that's big because a lot of times we're stubborn and like, no, I can do this, or no, it doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. I can take care of it, you know? And so just to have that awareness that I need help. So praises to the self, lots and lots of it. And then you can, you know, through friends, family members, clergies, I mean, you can ask if maybe speaking with a clergy would be enough. For an example, maybe speaking with a best friend would be enough. But if you notice that that is not enough, then the next step is to reach out to a coach or a therapist to see if they can be of help. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question, Jackie? I'm not sure.
Absolutely. If they were, some people are afraid to go seek professional help because, I mean, it can be pretty painful. I've been there, right? And sometimes you're afraid, or not even being afraid. Sometimes you don't know how to define what you're feeling. So if someone's in that state, do they call you as a coach, or is it better that they seek out a therapist of some sort? And what kind of therapist should they seek out? Because there's lots of different kinds of therapists. So what would your suggestion be?
Yes, I think well, in my case, for example, the reason I offer a free half-hour consultation because I want to make sure that me and the client who comes to me, that the two of us are a good match for each other.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, what did you say, Todd?
I just said you want to make sure that you guys click.
Yes, exactly. That we click and that we are a right match for each other. Yes, clicking is very important because therapy and coaching both, they all work if we click with the other person. You know, we have to, because it's all relationship based. So yes, to answer your question, what I offer is a half-hour consultation. And what you can also do is to a skilled therapist or coach can help you during that conversation, whether it's on Zoom or on the phone call. They will help you figure out what to do next. Because everybody, as far as I know, they offer a 15-minute consultation. So just to reach out, and it takes a lot of courage. You're right, Jackie. It takes a lot of courage especially if you've never had a coach or a therapist. It does take a lot of courage to reach out to someone. But a skilled person will, first of all, acknowledge your courage, but also will answer your questions, see where they are, meet you there, and tell you, based on what you're sharing with me, I can be of help. We can start individual therapy, or I think it's easier or better for you to see a coach, for example.
Okay.
So you have, so let's talk about that just a little bit, because you have a 3-month coaching program, right?
Yes.
And you have another event coming up that kind of gets people into the idea of what the coaching can do, or tell us a little bit about that first.
Yes. So I do offer a free masterclass, average twice a month. It's called Say No Without Guilt. And again, because I work with ladies who have left a toxic and or abusive relationship, this issue comes up quite a bit because it's very hard to know, first of all, what your boundaries are and how to say no, when to say no. And so in this free masterclass, we talk about different styles of communication. We talk about passive, we talk about aggressive, we talk about assertive, and how to move toward assertive as much as possible and when it's safe. And to recognize that we have the right to say no and how to do that.
So that's kind of an introduction to women that might think that there's an issue or that there is an issue, and now they are looking for instruction. This is free. And how long does this last for?
This is a 75 minute group
extended group
teaching, yes, masterclass, and it's free, and I don't record it because I want to make sure that people feel safe as
that's very cool.
Want to share. Yeah.
At least people have an outlet where they can be anonymous and see what other, because isn't that a big problem is people think that in those situations that I'm the only one, and this is special just to me, and I can't imagine this happening to anybody else.
Exactly. This is exactly why I enjoy doing groups so much, because you see literally every single person at the end of the program has always told me, I don't feel alone anymore.
Right.
Especially with the intimate partner violence stuff, because that is a subject that is dealt with in privacy, because people who are not in those types of situations can be very judgmental. It's like, why do you stay in that early? Why don't you just leave? And there's not that understanding that it's not so easy to leave. It's not easy. It's very difficult. And so to know that you're in a group setting where every person in that group has experienced similar things to you, maybe a toxic relationship or an abusive relationship, there's a little bit of difference between the two. But to your point, it's so important to know that you're not alone. And there's so much shame also in when you deal with something on your own and you think that it's only you, there's so much shame. And so when you come to a group setting, but in this case, it's just 75 minutes. So there's not a lot of deep connections that are built, but there's definitely enough to help you with improving your self-confidence, understanding what self-confidence is, where it comes from, and how to know the foundation of how you can start practicing to speak assertively.
You know, I don't want to get off in the weeds, but I think this applies. I've always been curious about women who stay in abusive relationships. And I've always, because I have background in the addiction, right? I was totally addicted to alcohol and chemicals and got myself clear of that with the 12 steps. Thank you. But I've always been curious about women, and it almost seems to me, and I don't know a whole lot, I'm not really educated on the subject, but it almost seems to me that women become addicted to their abuser or to that individual. Is that the way that works in breaking that addiction?
It's more,
and we're general, we're just being general.
Yes. So if I may answer your question this way, a lot of times they stay in their relationship because of different issues. For example, money is very important, because an abusive partner and I know that all genders can be abusive toward each other, but in my case, with the clients who I've seen, most of them have been in a relationship with a man and some of them with a woman. But with my pronouns, I want to make sure that I say that
we are in that era, we are in that era.
Now, abuse applies to all populations, but in my case, my clients their partner has been a male most of the time, sometimes female. But anyway, the reason that they stay, for example, because the abusive partner would make the other partner dependent on them financially. You're not allowed to work, or if you work, I take all your paychecks. And so or you're not allowed to get education in order to be able to have a job. And so there's a lot of financial dependence on the partner. Another reason they stay may be that they forget that I deserve better. And so that awareness is not there. That's a big one,
right?
Yes.
And that applies to self-worth, right?
Yes.
This is what I get because this is what I get.
And again, because a lot of times an abusive partner, they're so good with manipulating.
Yeah.
So if they constantly put you down, criticize you, and belittle you, then of course, eventually you take that in and believe what they're saying is true. Yeah. So that makes it very hard to move out of the relationship. If you have little kids, it makes it even more difficult. If you have immigration issues and they're going to say, I'm going to report you if you leave, which has happened to my clients. Sure. Or let's say, actually, I do a video of 14 possible reasons. Not all of 14 are coming to me right now, but the scariest of all is they threaten the partner. If you leave, I'm going to do such and such to you or to your family, or that the threat is like, it is the most, frightening one, where you're stuck because you have to keep yourself and the kids and your pets safe. So you have to stay.
In some cases that I'm familiar with, the person breaks away and has clearly made that clean break, and then they end up going back.
Yes. Unfortunately, so a lot of times what happens during that period is that the abusive partner would promise that they will change. A lot of times, I'm not saying every single time, but they will promise that I will change. Things will be different this time. I promise you that.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And again, on the other side, because the self-esteem is not there and it's difficult to be alone, then you'd prefer to go back to what you know.
Interesting. Fascinating. It's a dynamic. And so that initial free class, master class that you have is designed to assist that person in making the right choices and decisions, at least getting the ball rolling.
Well, the master class is mostly focused on communication, because again, if you come from that background, it's very hard to know, first of all, what are my needs? Because it's always about the other person. If you're in that type of a relationship, you're always taking care of the other person's needs and not your own.
Right.
So therefore, pardon me?
I just said codependency came to my mind.
Yes. Yes. So it's about understanding that my needs matter, my needs are important, and how do I use that to toward speaking in a way that honors my needs as well.
Right.
So the master class is mostly on communication aspect of things, but not everything else. That's my program. That's my full program.
Cool. And so when you say that there's a difference between an abusive relationship and a toxic relationship, what do you mean by that? What are the differences?
Okay, so in a toxic relationship, one or both partners may be mean to each other, or they might do a lot of passive aggressive ways of communicating. It could be one or both. And there's a lot of drama. There's a ton of drama. And
sounds like a court issue that we're all familiar with going on these days.
I know. Are you keeping up with Johnny Depp and Amanda Heard?
I have not read up on it, but I've heard about it. I have not.
Yeah, it's what you just described.
I'm not familiar with what's going on over there, but it may be toxic or abusive. I'm not sure. I don't know the details on that. But the difference between toxic, so in a toxic relationship, the one or both partners may feel exhausted and drained and not heard, not understood, resentful. All of those feelings come up. In an abusive relationship, in addition to that, to all of these, there's a lot of fearfulness, because one partner has more power than the other. Yeah. So one partner is using fear and manipulation in order to control the other partner. So they're not of equal status. One has a lot more power than the other. And in a toxic relationship, that's not the case necessarily. They can all yell at each other and not be afraid, or maybe even physically be aggressive toward each other and not be afraid of a potential consequence later on. But in an abusive relationship, you're always fearful of retaliation. Retaliation can be emotionally or physically or sexually or financially, spying, stalking, all of those things, where it keeps you from being able to express yourself. Whereas it's definitely lots of toxicity going on, but that's how I see them different. That element of fear is not necessarily present in just a toxic relationship.
No, that's a really good explanation. And what comes to mind for me, though, is that in most abusive situations, if not all of them, it really is about power and control.
Yes,
isn't
all of
it?
them. Yes.
And so when you have been the victim of someone who's trying to overpower you and control you all the time, it is not easy to break free from that.
No.
So you say the first step then is communication, or what is the first step?
Yes, if you're recognizing that you're in an abusive relationship, because sometimes, you might be in that relationship and not even recognize it. You might think it's normal because why the partner says this is how it is. Right. You deserve this and this is how you're treated. So once you recognize that you are in that type of a relationship, it's really important to get some support. Again, support of people you trust.
Right.
It can be speaking to a best friend or a clergy or a therapist, if safe, by the way. Safety is always number one priority in that type of a relationship. And so if you feel safe to reach out or talk to a domestic violence shelter near you, there's the domestic violence national hotline. Or you can call, like in LA County, we have 211, which is the LA County information line. And if you call them and in your county, wherever you're listening from, you can call your county and ask for the closest domestic violence center in your area. And even if you're not leaving yet, you can start planning toward it. And you need the support of those organizations to start planning for it, even if it's not safe to leave right now, but you work toward it.
At least plant those seeds to make the move. Fascinating. Okay, so now let's talk about your coaching program. We're just going to find everything out about you today. But your coaching program is different, I'm assuming, in that this is a 3-month program. It's one-on-one.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say it's empowerment, right? You're actually, so what can a person expect to be coached by you?
Okay, so thank you for that question. My program is called Empowerment for You. That's number 4 and letter U. And it's in 4 modules. And these 4 modules are basically the highlights of all the groups that I was running before and developed before. So I put the highlights into a program of 3 months, so in 4 different sections. And most of my work is done in groups. I do have some individual clients, but I mostly do groups.
So it's a group. So is this once a week?
So the program is for 12 weeks on Sundays. The next one starts on May 15th. So it's for 12 Sundays, 90-minute session online. And also on Wednesdays, we have a private Facebook group for only my clients, and nobody else comes there. Only my clients are in that group. And that's where I do a live check-in with everyone to see how you're doing with your commitment from the week before. Because at the end of each session, based on what clicks for the client, they would come up with a commitment for the week for themselves. And so we check on that halfway through the week on Wednesday to see, can I support you? Are there any barriers? How can I be of help? And so we do that. And also
that's very powerful. I ran groups like that for a while. And when you're in a group and you talk about what you've accomplished and then what you'd like to accomplish, and then you get input from people on ideas. Oh my gosh, it's just like this gigantic think tank.
Yes.
And it is very powerful. I'm sure you experienced it. They're mastermind.
Yes, I mean, definitely. I mean, that's why I do groups, because I love doing groups, because it's so inspiring to see how people are inspiring.
And the ideas, the flow of ideas is just off the charts.
Yes, it's very, very cool to be a part of that. It's just such a pleasure. Yes. So, and I do the same blueprint that I have developed, I use in individual services as well. But again, if you have experienced intrapartner violence, domestic violence, it's more powerful to be in a group setting because you've suffered in silence for so long. It is healing. It's really healing to be a part of a group and to understand each other and support each other, inspire each other. And
but your groups are the now and forward. It doesn't necessarily deal with what in the past, right?
No, we do not. Again, the past comes up, but we don't stay focused on it. The focus, I mean, that's for therapy. So that's for therapy. And that can be a side, this, as I mentioned before, you can have both at the same time.
So give us some examples of people that have come to your mastermind classes, your groups, and generalize just some of the accomplishments. I'm always fascinated by this because it is so powerful.
Yeah. So first of all, the first accomplishment is that you know that you're not alone. You have seriously, that's like the number one accomplishment, because again, you've struggled in silence for so long and in secrecy. And to recognize that you're not alone, there are 2, 3, 4, 5 people in that group. My groups are usually very small.
Yeah, very
and
intimate.
So yes, so you know that you're not alone. And for example, let's say there was going back to what I was saying before, it's hard to know if you're in that type of situation, because it's always about taking care of the other person's needs, and the other person has so much control and power. It's very difficult to know, what is it that I like?
Right.
What is
What's
it that I want? Right. Because
that's
it's
what
always
Jackie teaches kids. That
yes,
and once
you.
they open up to that, their whole world lies before them.
Yes. And I used to work with teens, and I appreciate so much what you do, Jackie. As I was listening to you at the beginning of this this program, I so admire what you do. So important. And yes.
So do I.
Yes, very much so. And so, for example, I've had clients who have said, I don't know how to order a drink at a restaurant, because how do I do that? I don't know, because he always ordered for me. He decided what to order for me. So I don't know. So there's so much insecurity about ordering a meal or ordering a drink. Or another client who said, when she was at the shelter, they said, what color t-shirt you like? Well, I don't know. He always picked my clothes. I have no idea.
Wow.
So part of our program is a big chunk of it, actually, the first U is unlearn the lies that you were told about you. That's what the first U stands for.
Nice.
Because that is such an important work, to recognize that I matter. My voice matters. I do have a voice. And so to find that voice is what we focus on the first U. And then the second U, can I say the 3 other U's?
That'd be awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
The second U is uncover the differences between healthy and unhealthy relationships, because a lot of us don't know what they're supposed to look like. We don't know boundaries, how to set them.
That's very cool, because women, or I'm just going to say a person,
yes.
people will get in relationships and then it doesn't quite work, right?
Yes.
And they get out of those relationships and then they find somebody else, but it's the same type of relationship that they get involved with again, and they're in the same boat.
Yes. Yes. In fact, speaking of teens, Jackie, many of my clients, when we discuss in this section, we discuss warning signs of that we need to look for in a relationship. They all say, not all, but many say, I wish I had this knowledge in high school.
Right.
Right.
And then I would not have married my, high school sweetheart. And 20 years later, I recognized that this was not a good situation. I wish I knew these signs in high school. And so, yes, it's so important. So that's the second U, where we discuss boundaries and healthy boundaries versus unhealthy boundaries and all of that. And then the third U is untie yourself from shame and guilt and move towards self-compassion. And as Brené Brown mentions accurately, shame is a master emotion because it's so intense. And when we feel it in one aspect of our life, it can easily spill into other aspects of our life, and it really gets us stuck. And we all experience shame. Yeah. We all experience shame, and we all find it hard to talk about. And of course, the more we don't talk about it, the bigger it gets. And Brené Brown's research also shows that as well. So a lot of my work in this section, a good chunk of it is from Brené Brown's teaching on shame and being vulnerable, and the difference between shame and guilt, and how to move towards self-compassion, because you cannot be in shame and self-compassion in the same moment at the same time. You're either in shame or you're in self-compassion, and how to move towards self-compassion as much as possible.
It reminds me of, do you remember the movie What About Bob? Did you guys ever see that? Bill Murray's character near the end of the movie when he's got these bombs, these explosives tied on to him. And he's sitting there thinking, I'm all tied up in knots. Yeah, that's it. I have to untie my knots. And it becomes this therapeutic thing for him to release these explosive devices that are about to kill him, right? And if he doesn't untie these knots, he's going to die. And so it reminds me of that. But it's very appropriate and applicable in these cases where we are sort of this ticking time bomb, if you will. And if we don't somehow release that,
it's a great metaphor.
The fear, the anger, the unhappiness, the disempowerment, and everything like that, then we're just going to keep on waiting for that next explosive relationship to come along. So that step 3 sounds like a really important one, but it also, I'm pretty sure, doesn't happen until the other 2 have taken place, right? Where you've had time to focus on those, because it's like climbing a ladder. You can't get all the way to the top until you've reached every rung individually.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. And one of the groups that I did in Women's Clinic was called From Shame to Self-Compassion. And again, based on the needs that I saw, because shame came up in all discussions, because shame is everywhere. Shame is in domestic violence, military sexual trauma, parenting issues, childhood trauma, homelessness, financial issues. I mean, you name it, it's everywhere. We all experience it, and it's everywhere. And so when we finished a couple of cycles of From Shame to Self-Compassion, a few of the ladies said, well, okay, we need more. What's next? We're not done.
Right.
Give us more. And so from there, I created that group, which is now module 4 here, which is upgrade. That's the 4th U. Upgrade your vision for your future. And that's when, because again, if you've been in a situation where, and this, I've heard zillions examples like this. Let's say you say, you say to your partner, I want to go back to school. And they would say, no, school? You? At 45? What are you talking about? And, maybe they'll laugh about it too. And so it's hard to then, if you've come from a relationship where you were constantly put down and criticized, it's hard to actually know that it's possible. If I want to go back to school, I can do that. So in this module, I ask everyone to come up with a vision for their future. It could be a smaller goal or a bigger goal, whatever you choose. And then we focus on, okay, we have exercises. What are the thoughts and the behaviors and the feelings that you need to experience in order to reach that goal? So as much as possible, we want to match our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors to that vision. And we practice that in module 4 of the group program.
Sounds cool. Where do I sign up?
I was going to say, do you have to be a trauma survivor to enjoy this? Because it sounds really cool.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. You don't have to be, so thank you for for that. That's so cool that you said that. You don't necessarily have to have been in an abusive relationship, as long as you have experienced, for any of your listeners, as long as you've experienced relationships that were not healthy for you, you can benefit from this program.
Sounds like it. And like I said, it sounds like teens need this program. So maybe you and I need to coordinate something here for the teens.
I would love that.
Mastermind groups. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
They're off the charts. Yeah. I used to facilitate them, and it's just amazing the growth that people can accomplish in that group setting. What comes to mind is where 2 or more are gathered, I am there. And it's just like this whole thing is amplified because of the group setting. So it's very cool. Yeah. Oh my goodness, ladies, we have about 5 minutes left. And is there anything else that you would like to say that would, how can I say it, entice our audience members to maybe go to your website?
Yes, please come to my website. It's called, the address is powertotheself.com. And there, under Get Started, you will see there's a video that says 14 reasons that cause you to stay in that relationship. And the reason I created that is because I want to help with moving towards self-compassion, again, because there's so much guilt and shame connected to that for a lot of people. So that's on my website. I also have the warning signs of an abusive partner under Get Started. And I'm on Instagram. Feel free to come look at my videos. That I do a lot of. I'm on the Instagram story every day, pretty much.
Oh, wow.
I do a lot of posts there. Power to the Self. Just look for Power to the Self there. And masterclass is on May 2nd. It's free. Feel free to sign up for it on my website. And the next cycle of the Empowerment for You group program starts on May 15th, Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific.
Coming right up.
Yes. So and I offer free consultation. There is a form that's attached to that consultation. And the reason I ask women to fill out a few answer a few questions for me is because I want to make sure that our half hour is very productive. So I don't spend a lot of time asking you questions. It just makes it more productive. That's why I ask a few questions there. So
well, usually, isn't it true for a coach? Usually the client will tell you what it is they should be working on, or what it is they should, what it is that they're in an indirect way that's easy enough for the coach to pick up on and head in that direction.
Exactly. So we make it a useful half an hour together. Yes.
Very cool. Any last thoughts, Jackie? Does anything else come to mind? Hopefully I didn't overpower you during this interview. That was fascinating.
No, of course not. But I do feel that I've been there. I've been that trauma survivor. I've gone through therapy, and it was important to be part of a group right after therapy, being part of a group of 15 women that were survivors of similar things, where we could talk to each other, we could understand each other. And I've mentioned before, we helped one of those survivors come out of a 32 multiple personality situation to integrate all of those personalities into her core, and to be part of that process and to watch that happen. I learned so many lessons about that. One of the most important lessons I learned was as her name was Carol, would face each one of these personalities of hers that basically kept her alive from the trauma situation that she'd had. Wow. She had to face them and hug them each in her mind. And then she would thank them for how they had helped her to survive and to live. Yeah. And I learned how important that is for each one of us to do, Homeyra, that no matter what trauma we've been through, it's important for us to see every part of ourselves for the way that part of us helped us to survive and helped us to connect with other people, and be grateful for that. Exactly. And then say, I got this now. Moving forward, I don't need that anymore. I've got me. I've got the power now to do this myself. That was really important for Carol. And so when you're describing this to me, that's what my mind is going back to, is that process that we all have to go through. So I'm very grateful to you for having a process for others to walk through that. So thank you for sharing that. I think you just mentioned moving from shame towards self-compassion in a nutshell. That's how I saw it or heard it anyway. Yeah. But thank you. Cool. I'm so happy to know that you both agree with the power of group services. It is.
Oh, it saved my life, I think. Let's see. We have about 2 minutes left. Any last thoughts?
Well, I would like to say, if I may, if there's a time to work on empowerment, is now. Yeah. Especially with all the madness that goes on in the world. Yeah,
we didn't even get into that, right?
Yes, so important to feel safe and stable and empowered on the inside, because we don't have a lot of power, what goes on out there, but we can get a control of fear on the inside. That would be so helpful in terms of how we function and relate to the world around us.
Wow. Thank you so much, Homeyra, for showing up as you today. I hope, did you have fun? Did you have a blast?
I had the best time. Thank you. Thank you both.
They always do. That's about all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please tell a friend about the show and how cool it was. We had an absolute blast today. Jackie, look at that big smile on Jackie's face. She had fun. I had fun. Check out our website. Check out Homeyra's website. And Jackie, any last thoughts for you?
Check out Homeyra. She's got the answers. So if you're in that situation, this is the person to talk to. So happy that you were on the show today.
Thank you both so much. It was so much fun. Groovy time, as you would say.
Groovy.
I'm infectious. That's very cool. It was a groovy show. I hope you enjoyed it. Lastly, please, please, please. Well, a couple things. Give yourself a big hug and make it a great day,
Everybody.
because it is a groovy day and you can start it out that way. Bye-bye for now.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to Life Mastery Radio. Join Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery through stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Visit their website, www.lifemasteryradio.com. Join their mailing list and be notified about upcoming guests. That's lifemasteryradio.com.